bit more about what we're on. So since both of you, this is your first time with us, and the rest of the regulars, they'll show up whenever they show up. Uh, Being the holidays, I don't know what to expect right now. But
Mhm.
anyways, I'm Laina Orlando, and I have been a student and a teacher of A Course in Miracles. Well, a student since 2011. And then before that, I had just an amazing experience, and I was given to teach something called the power of awareness, which is, Michael, you and Nancy came to the power of awareness workshop, and I was teaching that since 2007. And what happened was, after my mother passed away in 2002 and my dad the year before, I began to experience this incredible terror about dying. I was so afraid that I was going to die and go to hell because I grew up Catholic. And in my Catholic upbringing, if they wanted to get us kids in line, my parents, well, not my mom, because my mom was atheist, but my dad, my grandparents, all they had to remind us is, you're going to go to hell. If you do this bad thing, you're going to go to hell. If you do that bad thing, you're going to go to hell. And so it was constantly a constant reminder that not only were we bad kids, but because we were bad, we were going to go to hell. So when my parents passed away, one right after the other, within a year of each other's passing, all of a sudden this fear, oh my gosh, time to go to hell is pretty close, because mom and dad are in hell now. I knew some of the bad things that they did, and I know
Mhm.
I did plenty of bad things. So this terror came up. And then
Mhm.
I began to experience this desire to understand, where did this story of hell come from? It just did not make sense to me. So much of the Bible didn't make sense to me, reading the New Testament, because I never really, well, first of all, I grew up in a house that, even though the fear of God was put in us, I never saw a Bible until
Mhm.
I was much older. I probably 15, 16 years old when we moved from the Dominican Republic, where I grew up Catholic down there, and moved to the US. And in the US, we lived with a family that was non denominational, the Holy Rollers. And then they had Bibles, and we started learning about the Bible. And I was like, I don't know anything about this book. But I knew about hell, and I knew about being a sinner, and I knew some of the stories. And it was so fascinating for me, because when I went into this place of fear, I felt the presence that it still touches me 20 plus years later, that assured me that I was asking the right questions, that I was going to be given the answers, and that I was going to basically be changing my life in a way that I had no idea what was coming. And to me, that presence felt like the presence of Jesus, whom I grew up really liking. Jesus, I just didn't like the rest of the stuff that was said about him, or
Mhm.
that was in the books, and specifically in the Bible. So I was guided to learn about the Catholic Church, its origins, and I was taken down this rabbit hole. And this was in 2007. No, I'm sorry, in 2002, when it all started. I started questioning. And for 5 years, I went down rabbit holes about the Catholic Church, how it was created, the corruption between politics and religion, and how religion was used basically to scare people into doing what the government was wanting them to do, whether it was the kings or the queens or presidents, or it didn't matter who it was. It was a a marriage, if you will, between religion and politics, to keep people in line, to keep people from really knowing what Jesus was teaching us, which is that the kingdom of heaven is within, meaning God is within. And when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he meant all of us are one with the creative source. And the term Father was being used because we were comfortable, humanity was comfortable, specifically when the Course in Miracles came out, with the idea of God being a male being. However, the proper terminology for Father, God, would be creator. Creator being both masculine and feminine, because you can't create without both masculine and feminine energies, because those two energies combined create all that is. So, but the usage of father was appropriate specifically for those people who had grown up with a Catholic Christian background. So, Course in Miracles was given to us primarily to help the Christian people, those with that kind of teaching, and in some cases even Jewish teachings, Jewish background, to get comfortable referring to Father, to the word God. Because if it would have come out as creator, it would have been too metaphysical, it would have been too woo-woo, and it would have not been as well received as the Course in Miracles was, specifically using certain words. So I was being guided to understand the difference between the voice of God in our mind and the voice of the ego. And the ego is nothing more than that aspect of ourselves that has been programmed, trained, as I was, into fearing God, or into thinking this about God, and not that, this religion, that religion, whatever it is. And I was basically told, you're not going to open up any books other than the ones that I got you to look at. And sorry, I'm giving you kind of a long explanation, but I want you to know how I came to share what I share today. And so for 5 years, I was being, I'm going to say, trained into understanding my ego, becoming very familiar with that voice. In the beginning, I was guided to think of my ego, to kind of befriend my ego. I used to say, make ego my amigo, because I needed to hear what it was saying. I needed to get behind it, in terms of not behind it to support it, but behind it to observe it. And as I was being guided to watch my thoughts, to pay attention to my motivations, to really get clear about the ways that I was manipulating people, in that training, I was being always told very clearly, always told that I needed to observe the low frequency of my ego thoughts, and I needed to learn to shift them and lift them into the higher vibes of love, the higher vibes of God. And then I was given a course to teach called The Power of Awareness. And inside of that course, I just really only teach one tool, if you will, and that's the shift and lift. And that was to shift from fear and lift into love. So I opened up a center. I was guided to do that. And I opened up the center. And for a couple of years, I taught the power of awareness and other courses that came out of that. And I was told I was not going to look at A Course in Miracles, although people would ask me, is this course based on A Course in Miracles? Because you teach about the ego, you teach about love and fear, and you teach people how to change from one to the other. But no, I didn't know what the Course in Miracles was. I thought it was maybe something Marianne Williamson wrote. And then in 2011, I had closed the center, and I had remarried. I had closed the center, and it was becoming very obvious by that time, just a couple of years into my marriage, that marriage was an opportunity for me to learn about special relationships. And then I was guided to read A Course in Miracles. And at that time that I was guided to read the course, it became very clear that I'm to stay in one lane. And it's the most unsexy lane in the spiritual world, which is to teach people about the ego, because anybody who is unconscious, they don't want to learn about their ego. They don't want to see that they're the creators of their own misery. They don't want to accept how powerful they are. They want power to come to them, and they want other people to do things and give them, and they want God to have all these things, showered upon them, the house, the relationships, the cars, the money, the jobs, the whatever, the healing, but they don't want to do the real work. And the real work is to recognize that we're the creators of everything, good and bad, light and dark, love and fear, happy and sad. And the ego doesn't want to admit that it is creating its own demise. Because if we would recognize that we are the creators of our reality, then we don't need to be praying to a God or something outside of us. We don't need a job to make us happy. We don't need money to make us happy. All of that would be within. So we are like a dog chasing its tail. In one way, we want to be happy, but we don't want to face that we create our misery. And when it became extremely clear for me that that was going to be the work that I was here to do, as much as I argued and my guide is Jesus, and it has morphed now into the voice of God. So it's really one and the same. We're given what we need, kind of like training wheels on a bicycle to get us to the point that we realize that, we have to be, there's only one power, there's only one source, and we're all of it, actually. But to get to that place of that understanding, there's got to be an incredible level of spiritual maturity, which much of humanity doesn't quite have, because we are very immature, and I put myself in that category, still very immature, chasing the things that will make us happy and keep us safe. And we are at a point right now where humanity has to make a choice. And it's not like it's a good or a bad choice. It's just the choice that we had agreed to make at this time. And right now, what we're choosing between is ascending in consciousness, meaning moving to another level, higher level of understanding, more maturity, or we are going to descend. We're going to move lower in frequency. We're going to move lower in consciousness. And that's the only two options, because you're either returning to the truth of who you are, or you're moving away from the truth of who you are. And I use these charts, I get these visuals, and I have a friend who creates them for me. And humanity, we're all made of energy. As energy beings, we have made a decision that we are going to experience this third dimensional realm. There's lots of realms that we can visit, but we have been experiencing this third dimension, meaning planet Earth, and it's a planet of duality. It's a planet of ego. This is where ego happens. So it's a good thing because it lets us have this human experience. But when we believe that what we are is our ego, it turns into, well, an uncomfortable thing, but not because it's bad. It's just energy. It's just polarity. It's no different than at night. The darkness is not bad. It's just the absence of the light. So when we are operating in this third dimension, we are just operating with total, complete forgetfulness about the nature of who we are. So we fall into this lower consciousness. We believe that we're just humans and that we're less than, and that we can be manipulated into fears and into slavery, because we really all, when we're operating under ego, we're enslavement. But again, it requires an incredible level of desire for truth to really move out of the delusion that the ego has us operating from. So humanity has descended into low frequency. Now we're in the process of making a choice. And if you look at this spiral, think of humanity right now being like in one of those places where we're about to make a shift up, or we're going to make a shift down. And that's why I call this Ascension with A Course in Miracles. Well, it's what I was told to call it. There's not a lot of things that I take liberty in deciding how to do, because when I'm told this is the way it's going to be, then I've learned to follow that, because that guidance is absolutely not only spot on, it is the most peaceful that I feel. It is the most exciting that I feel, the most energetic that I feel. So I like following guidance. I used to not like that before. I used to like to be in charge, but now I like being in charge of doing what I'm told to do. Anyhow, so that's a long explanation to, in 2012, once I started reading A Course in Miracles, within a couple of years, I was told, you are now going to continue to teach about the power of awareness, because if people are not aware of where their power comes from, they can't wake up. But I was going to do it through a course, the use of A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles came super easy for me to understand because I had had 5 years of teaching the power of awareness, which breaks down how the ego is created, where it comes from, and what it is that we need to do to be able to transcend it. So, power of awareness is like the cliff notes to A Course in Miracles. And of course, Course in Miracles is a deep dive into understanding the truth. And for me, I cannot imagine that for the rest of my life, I would do anything other than continue to not study the course. I don't really study it, but I practice it. I do the teachings. I've studied them every single year, the lessons every single year, except for 1 year. I was taking some students through the book, A Course of Love, which is a follow-up to A Course in Miracles, as is also The Way of Mastery. But I will continue because I read the course and more layers keep opening up. It's like scales falling off of my eyes. So I continue to share because I continue to receive, as the course says, teaching teaching and learning. It's really one and the same. So I call myself a teacher, but I'm really a student that just every now and again I put on that little teacher hat to share what I've learned, but I'm still learning. So it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. So with that kind of not quite so abbreviated explanation of a little bit about me, uh, what are you guys wanting to learn in your journey? And we're going to go, because we are on lesson 76, which is I am under no laws but God's, which is an imperative teaching to understand. We have to get that what that lesson is teaching. Otherwise, we're going to have a tough time moving through what's coming, and it's coming really fast now, simply because we've been at this for 2,000 years, trying to wake up from the oppression of a world that is run by those who worship the ego. They idolize the ego, and if we don't understand how the ego works, then we're going to have a really tough time moving through the period that is before us. But it's a period that, think about it like being, if you're traveling international countries, we go through the space in different countries. They call it different things like immigration or customs or whatever you want to call it. And we're walking through a phase where either they're going to say, okay, check, we check your passport, everything is good, you get to go in and go do your whatever you want to do. Or they're going to say, something's off here, follow me to this little room and we're going to pat you down, we're going to check you out, we may even detain you. And that's where we are right now. We are starting to move through this area, which is a space in which we have to make sure, and it's not other people, it's us. Are we preparing ourselves to go into the next phase, or have we not done the work that we need to do and we're basically going to be sent off to the other room? And again, nothing does anything to us. It's all self done. And that is what the course wants us to get. We've got to do this work, but the experience that we're going to have is going to be the result of the work that we are either doing or not doing. So tell me a little bit about you guys. What are you looking for? Ian, tell me what is interesting to you about A Course in Miracles?
Yeah, so along with the Course in Miracles, I got this book called Jesus, My Autobiography. Have
Oh
you
yeah. Yeah.
That book was eye-opening and amazing, and it really, you ever hear that game Telephone where
Yeah.
people, kind of showed that the Bible in many ways is like that game where things were passed down and things were changed. A
Yeah.
lot of things were changed. And so hearing that from Jesus was like, wow, like
Yeah.
he was an extremely metaphysical person. I mean, we're talking about someone who could meditate in a cave and project his consciousness to other parts of the planet. Like, amazing.
Yeah.
And so, Because I relate to you where I feared going to hell. You know, I go on Instagram or sometimes I see people saying they've had a certain this, that, and the other. And so I feel like we shouldn't be talking about that. You know, like, so I've been trying to to conquer my fear, to get over my ego, to redirect with love. You know, like from everything I've been reading, it's like embody love in like in all ways that you can. Choose love every time. Um, and yeah, to raise into the idea of the splitting prism in the new earth.
Mhm.
And so my idea of raising into, I think they call it 5D consciousness, but raising my vibration so that I can raise, and that's done with love, but also from my perspective, letting go of fear.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
they both happen at the same time. It's like a hot air balloon. For a hot air balloon to be able to rise, we got to cut the weights. If
mhm,
we don't cut those sandbags, that balloon can only go so far. It's always going to be tethered by the weight. So fear is the weight. And the
mhm,
more that we raise our consciousness to that fifth dimension or fifth density, the more that we choose that, the less that we need fear. So
mhm,
they happen in tandem. It's like you have to choose love for fear to dissolve, but the fear doesn't dissolve until you decide it's not who you are. And those things happen in tandem. So I love hearing that. Very cool. Well,
sorry, I'm taking notes.
no, no, thank you. And I'm recording this, so this will also, I'll put it on my YouTube channel, Line Orlando, and you can find, this is going to be episode 177. So I've been doing this for quite a few years, these Wednesday gatherings. So while you take notes, let me take it with you, Michael. It's so good to reconnect with you.
See you too. I can relate to a lot of what Ian said, and I'm so happy to hear him address it at his age because at 76, I've been carrying my ego for a long time. So in 2006, when I started working with you and other people on this, I always carried my ego with me, and you'll recall that I was always in my story. You know, so much in my story, and it seemed every door I knocked on, like I couldn't find the key to open it, although I projected that I could, and I wanted to fix everybody else and, not myself. So I was your typical example. Um, One thing that did happen, I had a Shaktipa experience with Chris, this guy from the center. I don't know if you know him. Back in 2016, and nothing happened. I wanted the Eckhart Tolle experience. I wanted to be shocked. I wanted to be, wow, everything's beautiful. Had I known it was going to be this painful, I think I might have not asked for it. So nothing happened. But recently, I was hit with um, an experience, an awakening, and at the end of it, I went back. All the things started coming to me that I had went through before, but it's like I had read the pages without seeing the words before. So Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Awareness, your course, your Curious Masters, the Hermetic Order, everything that I thought I knew something about, I realized I was looking at it with my ego. It was my identity rather than my experience. And so I just started practicing love and forgiveness, like you have been preaching to me for many years, and not focusing on the why so much. And I became more present. And as I became more present, I became more at peace inside. It wasn't like, the experience of, oh, I've got to go to this church. I've got to belong to this. I've got to do Course in Miracles. I've got to do this. It was more like as above, so below, the correspondence thing. And whatever happened above, it happened below. And then my understanding became more clear. You had a class on the Divine Matrix back many, many years ago that I went back and read Greg Braden's book again, started reading it and looking at it. and everything just fell in place, and I felt at peace. I had that peace that people say they have when they've been baptized and when they found God. And I didn't find any of that. It just was a peace within myself. And I realized that this ascension process is happening so fast, and the fears that are projected are so chaotic that I wanted to be on the higher frequency side of it. And that's where I've been for, I put Nancy through hell these last 3 or 4 months, but uh, I'm like a child and a novice. But going back, I don't feel like I'm going back and relearning anything. I feel like I'm going back and experiencing things I should have experienced when I read everything and, listened to you the first time. Um, I'm just real excited about this. I feel real happy. The stuff going on the news and everything, it's just like, it seems like fluff. It doesn't carry any importance anymore. And I'm way behind everybody else, but I'm late to the party, but I feel at peace. So more or less, that's it.
Well, listen, brother, you can't be late to the party. Number one, the timing is always perfect for all of us. And you wouldn't have the awarenesses that you have now if you hadn't done all that work that you have done to pre-pave being at this level. And we have a lot of young people, Ian, there are waves of us coming into this dimension with very specific roles to play. And your generation, my generation, we came in kind of the tail end of the baby boomers, that time period where the hippies were popular, making love not peace, or peace not war, whatever it was a saying. I was still a little too much of a young kid. I wasn't into that so much because I was the tail end. But we came in to anchor the frequency of the indigo beings. We came in to create a space where talking about love and questioning religion, questioning the government, had the ability to take hold. We needed to be that anchor. And then our being the anchor, we bring in our children who were born around the 1980s, a lot of them that began to be born in that time frame. This is the generation that came in to really push against. And so many kids in that are in their 30s, 40s, they were pushing against the system. The school was super boring. When school was boring for us, we didn't say anything because we didn't want to get in trouble. But for that generation, they were coming in pushing. They were pushing the status quo. And so many of them, were born around the harmonic convergence. The harmonic convergence is set the into motion the beginning of a time frame of about 36, roughly around 36 years, which is going to extend until about 2030, just a little bit. It depends on calendars. A lot of our calendars are very off, but if you just follow the stars, you can recognize that we're in a time frame where we are moving through the harmonic convergence, which is planets lined up in a specific way. This is why, they make astrology sound so crazy. But if you understand astrology, astronomy, and you work with them, you understand that, as you just said, Michael, as above, so below, there is something that is happening. And there is an activation that is taking place as we move through the alignment of planets, which is also known as a photon belt. We are circling this. It's a 26,000 year cycle. If you study Greg Braden's books, he explains this in probably some of the clearest terminology that I've heard. He's a scientist, so he breaks it down into that clear understanding. So we are moving through an area in space where we needed some of us to be born ahead of time to prepare for what was coming, in essence, to prepare the space to receive the children that were born again in that 20, they're in their 30s right now, 30s, 40s. And then they're having babies or have been having babies. I know I've got two little ones right now. I've got a 3-year-old grandson and an 8-month-old granddaughter. And these kids are coming in with a certainty of who they are because they picked to incarnate with families that there was at least 2 generations, if not 3, but primarily 2, a grandparent and a parent that had a higher level of consciousness. Those children, those kids are coming in and they're not going to be held down by systems because they're not playing that game. Because we are system breakers. For example, my kids, I did vaccinate my kids. My daughter absolutely will not vaccinate her children. I gave my kids crap to eat because I didn't know any better. My daughter absolutely reads every label. Those kids, their bodies are being treated as the temples that they are because they are the temples that house our souls. Our souls are the divine aspect of creation that is being born, coming into physical manifestation. And again, they're going to be born to move with those who are ascending to a higher density, to the 5th dimension. And we're not that far away from living in that 5th dimension. Now, I'm saying within 100 years, planet Earth will be a 5D planet. Right now, we are in the moving through the birthing system process, the experience where we are letting go of what we're not anymore and moving into what we are. For those who are ascending, those who are descending, on the other hand, which is why you try and talk to some people about what's going on and they think you're insane. Those who are descending cannot see. They do not have the eyes to see nor the ears to hear what's happening. But it's not because they're dense or difficult. It's because they don't want to at a soul level. We have souls who are descending, souls who are ascending. And until we understand and respect that everybody's a creator of their reality, then we want to try and change their come this way, this is better. Well, it's not better for a soul that needs to go into lower frequency to get their lessons, because every single one of us has the opportunity to learn through karma or no karma. No karma means you're not bouncing. You don't have to keep getting hit by, with 2x4s to get the lesson. Those of us who are done with karma are done with fear. We don't need fear to motivate us into understanding how to play this game, which is nothing more than putting on a costume to pretend that we're a human and at the same time forget that what we are is a divine being. Those who are moving to the 5th dimension are going into that 5th dimension because they understand they are both necessary at this physical to have this physical experience. We need a body and we need spirit. Without spirit, the body's not animated. Without a body, spirit cannot be embodied. I mean, we need those two things. So we're creating a beautiful, harmonious relationship where we take care of our body vessels, meaning we've got to understand all that is being done to the human vessel, and we got to pull ourselves out of that density of poisoning and enslavement and abuse and all those crazy things. But they're only crazy to us because we've been there, done that, and we don't need to do that again. But those who need that experience, they have to go into that lowered frequency to find the contrast that then teaches them or gives them the opportunities to decide, I don't want this anymore. But we cannot take that ability away, because that's what we incarnate in the 3rd dimension to do, to see how dark can we get, because it's a game. It's fun. It's like going to the amusement park and going to the haunted house. It's fun to go have somebody chase you with a chainsaw. And my kids used to do that every year. They couldn't wait for Halloween so they could have the crap scared out of them because they thought it was fun. And then one year they decided, you know what, that's not fun anymore. I could not have told them that at this age, at this time, after they did it 10 times, it'd be boring. They had to come to that on their own, just as I had to come to my process on my own. And A Course in Miracles, what the Course does is it gives us a manual, as you were saying, Ian, when you read that book about the autobiography of Jesus 2000 years ago gave us these same messages. They were distorted. And over, if you study the history of the Catholic Church, you can see it's so clear to see how everything was political, and it was used to scare people because we have been immature infants, if you will, as humanity. We immediately, from the moment that from conception, we let the outside influence what we know. And because we have been influenced into giving our power away, we've been giving our power away. And Jesus keeps coming back, keeps coming in with different books and different teachers and different teachings. Now it's pretty hard to miss what Jesus is teaching us, because there are so many channels everywhere. Many of us are channeling, children are channeling, things are coming out of their mouths that you go, how can a 4-year-old say this? Well, that's because the veil between the human and the forgetfulness veil is so thin right now that anybody who is tapped into that is going to be channeling, because they're going to be bringing forth truth that has always been true. And everybody's saying the same thing when they're speaking truth. And it's all loving, and it's all uplifting, and it's all preparing those who are ready to get off of this merry-go-round. But those who want to stay on that merry-go-round, they can. And that is, Michael, you were talking about how, you wanted to fix everybody else. Me too. That's how I got into this. I know that this is why I was given this role, because I like helping people. But now I don't help anybody because I think there's anything off. I simply support anybody who is looking for a different direction. But anybody who is creating misery for themselves, who, except for children and elderly people, when you're a child or when you're an elderly person and you are at a place where you need somebody else to help you, because on your own you can't take care of yourself, then that's a whole different story. It's our responsibility to help one another. But when somebody is making choices and they keep getting in the same kind of bad relationship or the same, and again, there's no good or bad, I'm just using those words to kind of show density. But people who keep repeating patterns and keep getting into uncomfortable places, they want to be there. As a matter of fact, they need to be there, because how else are they going to get the contrast to say, I'm done with this? And we need to learn to respect that everybody is where they want to be at a soul level. As a human level, it may not look that way. But if they're repeating patterns, they need to keep repeating it until they decide of their own free will, because that's the thing that every one of us has, of our own free will, say no. So we're in a wonderful place. But let's go into A Course in Miracles. And I hope you guys come back, because every week, and we normally have more people, but I think it's the holidays. I know a couple people are traveling today, and so it's going to be a little, this week and next week, it's always a little slower. But let's go into Course in Miracles, into lesson 76. That lesson is titled, I am under no laws but God's. Now, we've been looking at this lesson now for, I guess we started this maybe about a month ago. So we've already had 4 or 5 gatherings at that specific section. And typically we just go straight into, when we come together, we go straight into whatever transmission comes through me. And then after that, I want you guys to ask questions or make comments. And again, all of you are teachers. Everybody's a teacher and everybody's a student. So when we have something to offer, please share it. When you need to receive, take what you need and leave what doesn't. So it's a very, it's a beautiful process. So in lesson 76, the reason this is such an important lesson, and to me, this is where we really see the distinction between one who is more mature than another. And I say the word mature because really maturity is just like a little child. A 10-year-old can do things that a 2-year-old can't do. It doesn't mean the 2-year-old is stupid. It just means they haven't gained the maturity. And that same 10-year-old You put him next to a 16-year-old, a 16-year-old will know more. It doesn't mean that the 10-year-old is stupid. It just means that through life experiences, we gain understandings that expand our maturity, expand our knowledge of how things work here on this planet. And thankfully, I say thankfully, as we become more mature in our process, we begin to gravitate to feel a resonance. We see something like, maybe Ian, you saw this, you didn't know me from Adam, and you felt a resonance when you went to my website, because vibrationally we are meeting each other there. We're letting go of the superficial, I'm attracted to this teacher because they look this way, or they have this, or they have that, or they drive this car. Those things, when you start maturing, don't mean anything. What means something is there a resonance? Do I feel like there's something? And we come together for however long we come together, and we go apart when our time together is complete, but there's no good or bad feelings about it. There's just simply a knowing that we're here to help each other. Lesson 76 is a lesson that really begins to show in a very clear way that we are if we are on opposite understandings about what's happening here on this planet. Lesson 76 starts off with I'm just going to read a couple of sentences from each paragraph, but today we're going to go to paragraph number 8. So here in paragraph 1, it says, "We have observed before how many senseless things have seemed to you to be salvation." So under this lesson, Jesus wants us to understand that he gets that we have all kinds of senseless things that we have assigned power to save us. And what it's stated here by saving us is, really think of it as sparing us suffering. So salvation, we thought the job would spare us suffering. We thought the partner, the engagement ring, the amount of money in the bank, that this president or that president was going to spare us suffering, because we always keep going outside of us to try and change things, not understanding that everything in this world is a projection. And our maturity becomes really clear when we understand that the projector is in us. We are projecting out into the world everything we see. And it's a very lofty concept for somebody who has done the work to realize that nothing outside of us makes us happy. Nothing really can make us happy. Happiness is always self-generated. And if you don't know that, then you're always going to be manipulating the outside, the job, the partner, the friends, the whatever, to give you something that you don't have the maturity to understand it's already within you. So if you move down into paragraph number 2, it halfway through sentence number 3, it tells us how simple is salvation. And the simplicity of salvation is knowing everything is coming from inside of me. And if I want to change my experience from suffering to joy, then you've got to stop projecting uncomfortable things out there. So what does that mean? It's very simple. Come inside and change your mind about things. Stop doing the thing you don't like. And that is a very challenging proposition to somebody who's conditioned to believe, but I didn't make me suffer. She did. He did. They did. So it takes, again, maturity to realize, okay, if I want suffering to end, let me go to the source of it. Me. There's just nothing else. So when we move into paragraph number 3, it tells us that in the first sentence, think of the freedom in the recognition that you are not bound by all the strange and twisted laws that you have set up to save you. Humanity has been on this planet for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, way more than we have been taught. And we are getting this information not only through channeling, but when you follow teachers like Greg Braden, he has information, scientific information about archaeological digs that are showing us things that are way older than what we had thought before, into the I'm going to stick to the number that I'm more comfortable with, which is about 200,000 years. And so when we think 200,000 years of manipulation coming down for quite a while, and civilizations that had ascended, but then they were not able to make the shift. And that's really my understanding what happened to Lemuria and what happened with Atlantis is that they reached a certain level of awareness. They were moving through the photon belt. They had their cycles of time, but they were not quite at the vibration of love. So basically, humanity had to kind of start at a level just below where they were at. So we are still working our way to the knowledge that some of those beings had, but there weren't enough of them that were high enough to pull humanity to as a collective to the next level, where right now we have that. We have a good percentage. I keep hearing 20%. We have about 20% of humanity, not all necessarily aware that they're at that level of frequency, but people who are operating from love, not fear, that live their lives. They don't need to be spiritual. They don't need to have a label that says, oh, you're so advanced. They just simply live their lives. They tend to their animals. Maybe they are a monk in a monastery somewhere and don't really connect with anybody else. But internally, they know who they are, and they're just emanating that frequency. They are absolutely clear that humanity, it deserves way better than what we have. And the reason, and again, I hate using that because we're all getting what we at a soul level desire, but there are enough of us who don't want to play these games that is spoken of right in here, which is we're bound by very strange and twisted laws. If you go lower into paragraph 3, it tells us that we think that stacks of green paper strips and piles of metal discs, meaning coins and dollar bills. We really think that small round pellets, which are pills, or some fluid pushed through your veins, which is vaccines, or through a sharpened needle, are going to ward off diseases. We think that we need to have another body so we're not alone. The ego mind has been through thousands of years conditioned into believing that our well-being comes from a doctor, our pill, something outside, that our financial safety comes from working really hard and getting dollar bills or coins and accumulating wealth to be okay, or that we have to have a person so that we're not alone. Those are completely made up ideas that the egoic minds have, and we have agreed that that is true. So from a collective consciousness, from mass consciousness, we have been herded like cattle into becoming worker bees and working ourselves to the bone to accumulate. And sure, it's fun. I had a lot of fun when I was working and accumulating. It was fun. But what I did not know is that underneath that, it was all done because I thought that was going to make me somebody, which meant it, in that desire to accumulate and be somebody, I was blocking my awareness of who I really am. And who I am is a divine child of God, is a creator creating in enslavement, as opposed to a creator consciously creating from a place of wholeness, from a place of, yeah, I want to play with this because it's fun, but not because I have to. Because you know how many sleepless nights or how many years we sacrifice doing what we think we should be doing to get ahead. All the while, we are as ahead as we can be. We are creators of our reality. You can't get any more advanced than that. We were just creating unconsciously because we did not know how powerful we were, because we got conditioned to believe that we're less than the teacher, less than the mother and the father, less than the boss, less than the spouse. We really believed that we needed them, or that it was coming from the outside. So to reverse that kind of thinking, we need to reparent ourselves. We need to consciously come within, looking at those beliefs that create our discomfort, and see how simple salvation is. Shift and lift your mind. shift and lift your understanding of it. I mean, and I've got so many different charts. You'll see them, I'm sure, over time. But we have to understand what is a thinking, a thought that is in alignment with truth, and what is a low vibing thought, which is not true. And it's very simple. Salvation is very simple. When you know truth, it feels very peaceful. It feels very exhilarating. It feels very joyful. But when we're believing what is not true, it feels dense and like a weight, and like you got to work hard, and like you got to make it happen, and like you got to go push uphill, because the ego has been trained that the harder you work, the better it is, that you've got to work really hard to get ahead. All kinds of beliefs that are not so. And then you move into paragraph number 5, where we're basically told, those laws of the ego, the laws of medicine and economics and health and all of that, they're basically madness. They're crazy. Because if we could sit and know the truth of who we are, well-being is already within our field. It's the energy that we are. For us to be sick, we have to block our goodness. So what we need to learn is how to unblock what is already good there, and it doesn't come from a doctor on the outside. Except if you believe that your well-being comes from the doctor, by all means, go to the doctor, knowing that they're a creator also, and see the God in them, see the Christ in them, and tell yourself the truth. I don't think that I can heal myself, but I believe that if I go see Dr. Bob, he has the ability to do something that, as long as I practice the placebo effect, which is basically I trust that Dr. Bob is going to help me. You're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. But your well-being comes from you accepting the well-being from Dr. Bob. Not that he gives it to you without you having anything to do with it. It's your willingness to receive goodness, no matter where it comes from. So whatever gets us to that point that we know that our mind is what either gives permission to receive or blocks anything good that could come our way, that's where the work has to happen. So we're being taught, that we got wonderful truth to live by, God's laws, and then we've got the distorted madness of the ego, and then the ability to save ourselves, spare ourselves that pain is simple. Choose differently. So the laws of God cannot be replaced at all. It says that in paragraph number 7, because the laws of God's are what help us become free. We are already free, but when we understand the laws, then we really gain a level of freedom to remove the bondages that we have accepted because of our ego mind being so immature and so easily manipulated. So paragraph 8 says, we will begin the longer practice periods today with a short review of the different kinds of laws that we have believed we must obey. These would include, for example, the laws of nutrition, of immunization, of medication, and the body's protection in innumerable ways. Well, what did we just go through a couple years ago? We went through this pandemic. To me, as I look at it now, I can see that it was completely planned. The information is there to help anybody with the eyes to see what has happened. And if we get comfortable with the understanding that we live in a world where we are being used to produce, everything is about money, to make money, and you begin to utilize common sense, and you realize that if you make somebody healthy, they don't make money off of you. So why is it that these companies that have been around for 100 years still can't cure a damn thing? Well, when you can step back, you can't be in your ego, because if you're afraid you're going to need to get them to do something for you, you got to take that pill so that you can get better. Or if you move to the place that you're kind of seeing it, it doesn't do you any good to be blaming or shaming them or judging them. It doesn't do you any good. What helps is to move out of the story. And when you are no longer needing to get your salvation from them or to let them know how bad they are and how they're suppressing you, because they're not suppressing you. You're playing the game. When you can pull back and become the observer, aware of what's going on, we're playing a game. Third dimension is a game. Fourth dimension is a game. Fifth dimension is a game. Like games in a video game. We're moving into the next level, the next level, the next level. I mean, I was never a big video game player, except for I used to love Pac-Man and Centipede. So when I was younger, obviously dating myself, back in the 80s, I think is when these games came out. And we would go to the bars and we play Pac-Man forever. Well, every time that you accomplish something, you go to the next level and it would just get a little bit more intense and more intense. Well, that's what has happened to humanity. We are at a level of the game of being a human, and this game is getting boring for some of us. So we want to up our game. You cannot up your game if you start beating the machine. The only way to up your game is to recognize that it's a game. Number one, you've got to be honest. This is a game. And the ego says, oh, but there's people suffering. Yes, on the third dimension, there are people suffering. Yes, we're in the haunted house. Yes, some people are being chased with chainsaws. It does feel really real. However, if you want to get out of the game, you've got to acknowledge the game. There is no way out other than to acknowledge the game. Because if you're taking it seriously, you can't get out of that game. You've got to lighten up. That's why they call it enlightenment, not endarkenment. Enlightenment means lighten up. Just let this game be fun. Let it be what it is. Step back. And as a matter of fact, that you step back and begin to watch the players, it's pretty damn comical. And if you can take that approach and laugh at the insanity, oh, those people are trying to get really rich. And to get really rich, they're killing all these other people. Isn't that interesting? These people incarnated to be the ones who get killed by these people who are trying to amass a bunch of money. Wow. It's amazing. We go to the movies and pay money to see movies like that. So recognize that we're in a movie. There are characters here. And when you can recognize, as it says in here, we have all kinds of these laws that we think we have to obey. When you realize it's a game and you stop obeying the laws, now all of a sudden everything changes. You really get your mojo back. You really realize, oh my gosh, all these people do these things because they think they have to. I did. And then little by little, I started pulling out. There are some things that I just don't do. I don't participate in. And I just sit back and I play some of the rules like I need to play them. You know, I've got insurance on my car because, you know, I have to play the game that way to get my car tag or whatever, all crazy things. Why do I need a tag to drive my car? You know, if I can drive it, I can drive it. If I can't drive it, then I won't be on the road for very long. It won't take long to be taken out, kind of like bumper cars. But when you're playing the game, like I don't do health insurance. I do not believe in that system whatsoever. I only see a naturopath if I feel like I need to go to a doctor. Otherwise, I'm always in my meditation. I focus on the well-being of this body because I'm playing the game by God's laws. And God says that I'm the creator of my reality. So well-being is part of my reality. And that's how I stay well, because I expect it. Like it says in one of the lessons, I'm entitled to well-being. So why would I pay for insurance, health insurance, for something that I don't need? But I am very clear that I don't put myself in situations where I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to catch this from that person, or there's another flu. I don't think that way. That's just not my reality. My reality, those people want to play with the flu. Good for them. Let them do it. But it's not for me. And that requires an active, an honest and active, what's the word that I'm looking for? You've got to take an inventory of what you're believing consistently until those low, dense beliefs, fears, angers, judgments, worry, shame, guilt, when those drop away, and they will drop away if you're not using those thoughts, they have nothing, they can't gain traction in a mind that has been turned into Teflon. They're going to slide right off. But if your mind is sticky, maybe I'll catch this illness, or I'll catch that thing, then your mind is like Velcro and things are going to stick. So once you begin to let go of those things as being part of your reality, there's no place for those things to stick in your consciousness. And then you can just move about. I fully expect another lockdown to be here within the not too distant future. That's not going to scare me, because I'm expecting it, because I know humanity is playing the game like that, and I've already played that game before, and it's not going to bother me in the least. There's zero fear about the lockdowns that are coming, but they have to come, because when you understand how the ego works, it always does the same thing expecting a different result. Well, it didn't get the result that it wanted at a mass level quite fully with the last lockdown. So it's going to try another one, but it's going to try it a little different. But this time, there are so many that are not going to really participate in that the failure of it is going to become a glaring example of how many people have shifted to God's laws versus human laws. Because that's what's been happening these last couple of years. There are people who are waking up and moving out of the enslavement of the ego mind and moving towards the acknowledgement of the power that we have within. But we can't gain the courage to completely just unplug from the system until we first gain the courage by not being afraid of what's happening. And as we cultivate a relationship with ourselves and feel more and more comfortable connecting to God and getting our answers from God and circumventing the ego, we are not really prepared to fight the battle against the oppressors. And the Course teaches you not to fight battles, but to go above the battleground. So here in sentence number 3, it says, so think further. We see those crazy laws of nutrition and immunization and medication and protection of the body. Think further. You believe in the laws of friendship, of good relationships, and reciprocity. Perhaps you even think that there are laws which set forth what is God's and what is yours. Many religions have been based on this. They would not save, but damn in heaven's name. Yet they are no more strange than other laws you hold must be obeyed to make you safe. Bottom line, the Course wants us to understand every single laws except for God's laws must be looked at. They're all made up. Every one of them is made up. That you need to have a partner to be happy, that you need whatever it is, anything to make you safe or to make you happy. If you're looking outside of yourself for safety and happiness, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because nothing in the world of impermanence is going to ever be there for you the whole time. It's not possible. Things here are designed to drop off. It's like playing the video game. You see certain things at some levels, you're not going to see them at others. They're going to drop off. Why? Because it'd be boring to keep doing the same thing over and over again forever. The excitement is in doing things that allow us to stretch and expand. So let's stop here. If you've got any thoughts, comments, questions, please share them. And next week, we'll just pick up on paragraph number 9 and keep going. And of course, I won't tell so much of my story in the beginning if you guys come back, because it won't be necessary. All right, Ian, what are your thoughts, comments on anything that is shared here from the Course?
Yeah, because we're definitely creating what we experience through our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. So the idea that there's laws of nutrition, immunization, I mean, we have great healing power immensely inside of us that we can activate when we're in alignment with ourselves. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I've been so interested, what is your understanding of like personal reality connected to co-creation? Because some people they say that, oh, it's a co-creation, we're all co-creators, and then some people say, oh, you create everything you see. So where does that like come together in a sense from your understanding?
Great question. And so I'm going to answer in a general way, and then I'm going to get a little bit more granular. And now I've got a visual to help you. So humanity has been operating. We have thought that we have been co-creating. So I love to use the slinky as an analogy. So we've been all living here on planet Earth, and let's
Hmm.
say this whole thing is third dimension.
Hmm.
All thought, okay, we're here. You've got this role. I've got this role. It's a co-creation. We didn't even think of the word co-creation, but it is what it is.
Hmm.
And that's important to understand that when we travel together, we are in a co-creation, mass consciousness. But
Hmm.
because mass consciousness, as it is, as it stands, as it stood, it's changing now, has been under the egoic spell. We
Hmm.
have all agreed that power was outside of us. Government knew
Hmm.
better than we did. Teachers were teaching us what we needed to know to be, successful. Doctors could fix us. So we operated as if power was outside and that was agreed upon.
Hmm.
When we enter our spiritual awakening individually, what happens is we pull this apart and we begin to see that this is me. This is me
Hmm.
here. I do the work to wake me up, to understand my part in the whole.
Hmm.
When I operate with the ego, then I'm operating in the collective. When I operate understanding who I am, then I'm operating with God, because now
Hmm.
my work is to allow myself to be an instrument for God's knowledge to come through. So
Hmm.
so it's both. We have the individual part that we need to become conscious of and take 100% control for our personal experience, and then we're part of the collective. So in the past, we have been operating unconsciously. Now, as more and more people wake up and understand who they are, understand their role in what is happening, what is changing is that we are collectively splitting into different timelines. We are moving. There's a whole bunch of us that have done the inner work, and we are coming together to create this fifth dimension. And
Right.
there's a whole bunch in the middle. The fourth dimension, the fourth density is where we're doing the work. This is where we have one foot knowing we're not just humans, but one foot is still in our human story. We're still going to the job, we're making the money, we're living as if this is
Hmm.
what we really are. So there's a whole bunch in the middle who are waking up, who are not quite grounded in the fifth, not quite, no longer beholden to the third, but there's a whole bunch that are not awake in the third dimension. So, individually, as we wake up and consciously choose our frequency, we're in the world, but we're not of it. We are the ones who are unplugging from systems that are breaking down.
Hmm.
For example, here in the US, the current election, many people are not buying into what we've been told. We are grounding ourselves in a fifth dimension uh, consciousness, fifth density. At this level, we are pretty enlightened, meaning that we've lightened up. We're not taking what's happening here seriously. And once we don't take it seriously, there's no feeling bad. So we're not projecting discomfort. Many are creating this reality. So I don't know if you've been hearing, been exposed to the idea of the split in timelines, but we are in the process of shifting. There's going to be in the not too distant future when we're literally going to wake up one day and we're going to go, I don't see any more greedy people. I don't hear of any more um, selfish people and stealing people or whatever. They're not going to be in our reality, because in this fifth dimension, we know that we are creators of our reality, and we're going to be instantly manifesting whatever it is that we need when we need it. There's no need for hoarding or anything like that. So the systems are going to be designed in a very benevolent way back to the people in transparency. Crypto is a great example of that.
Hmm.
So that's going to be the new reality. For those who don't want to see, because the souls are not done playing in the lower dimensions, they're going to experience a whole different reality. The ones in the middle are the ones who need to make a decision before, again, I believe is the year 2030, maybe 2032, 33, because time is pretty fluid. They have to make a decision. Are some going to move up and some are going to move down? And then we're going to be living like next to each other, and we're not even going to be aware of each other's experiences. But you can't get to that collective 5D if you don't do first the individual work of stepping out of the third dimension, moving yourself into the fourth dimension of curiosity. And in that curiosity, be willing to look at everything as it's possible. It's possible because we incarnated in a planet where these are our realities. Our realities here are not being like a, alien or whatever, having just unusual for us bodies or whatever. We have human bodies having human experiences. So we need food, we need water, we need soil, we need certain things. We're just learning to utilize those things in collaboration and cooperation. So did that make sense?
Yeah, that was the best explanation I've received. Because I've had that question, like they say personal reality, some say co-creation. We talk about that, so like where it comes together. And yeah, oh man. Because I find in spirituality you can get really deep into things and then you can sometimes get a little lost. But
And
yeah.
that what you just said is key. If you know that you are operating with truth, it's going to be pretty simple. It's going to kind of make sense and just keep moving. In the last aspect of the ego to be undone is a spiritualized ego, because an ego that gets all spiritual thinks that it knows better and it judges from that perspective. I know mine very well. That's why my relationship with my former husband was such an incredible opportunity for me to learn that I needed to let go of that spiritualized ego. And he came to help me see mine really clearly. Of course, I saw his and I was pointing out his spiritual ego. And that's when one day I went, wait a second. I know I'm teaching these things. If I'm pointing over there, it's about something here. If I can observe it in another and I have zero reaction, then I know I've pretty much have unplugged that frequency from me. But if I'm pointing at and if you would change that over there, then I would get to be okay over here. Then I knew the work was always, 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 always within me. But yeah, we're in an amazing time. It's just such an amazing time. But the simpler things stay, the faster we move through this process. Like Michael was saying, for me in the beginning, I was so analytical. And it was really, I'm going to say, my listening to guidance, my feeling Jesus guiding me. And when I heard that and felt that, I knew I've got to just accept what I'm being told. Course in Miracles tells you right in the introduction, you can't decide what these words mean. You can just pick what you can handle at any given moment, because the truth is the truth is the truth. And the more we allow ourselves to let things be simple and fun and easy, I was told you are enlightened when life is fun and easy, because you're not pushing back anymore. You're flowing. But yeah, that spiritualized ego is a challenging one to move beyond, because once you think you know, and you may very well know some truths, but you're still using them to manipulate others, you're co-creating codependency, and that's sticky and yucky, and well, it's ego. Even if you put on all kinds of spiritual music and spiritual garbs and open up a spiritual center, and it's still manipulative.
So do you have any tips for letting go of like the spiritualized ego or
Honesty.
honesty?
And just keep it simple. Is it a loving thing? Is what you did loving? Was there any could you smell any manipulation in there? Did you do something nice to get something? And that is the fastest way to recognize. And that honesty with ourselves is how we cultivate maturity. Because the more you see how we do things to manipulate, are you buying presents so that the girlfriend will be happy with you, or mom will see how much you care. If you no longer are trying to manipulate other people's behaviors, then you're operating more and more purely. And the more pure you are, the less ego there is. So it gets super, super, super simple.
Because I was gonna say I always had my head in the clouds, I was always like, because I wanted to ascend, but my parents are a certain way, so I was like, am I gonna leave my parents behind? But then I was like, wait a second, they're infinite beings. There's infinite versions of them. So, like as I ascend, you'd think I'd see a kinder, more loving version of them as well. And then I felt alone. I was like, wait, but am I the only person who's alone here experiencing the different versions of these beings? But then I was like, wait, but that's still them. And I was all frou-frou land. Frou-frou land I was.
Yeah, yeah. I was too. I was too. When my son was 14 and he was doing drugs, I
Mhm.
too was like, he's a creator. He's doing his own thing. If he overdoses and and he commits suicide because he kept talking about, that's how he wanted to go. Um,
Mhm.
so he wouldn't feel a thing. I was, how can I leave him? How can I not try and wake him up and out of this thing? And then I realized, he's my brother in Christ. If I don't treat him like the powerful being that he is, I'm still trying to manipulate him. And all the manipulation of him was so that I wouldn't have to go to his funeral.
Mhm.
And then I thought, is that love? Because if I really loved him, if his choice was to kill himself and drop the human experience, he can't kill himself, but drop the human body, he's only going to be back with creative source. He's in a better place than me. And I
Yeah.
thought, why would I stop that if that's what he wants to have as his reality? And then I recognized how it was all manipulation. It wasn't real love. Real love was, you do whatever it is that you want to do, and I respect you. I don't have to like it or not like it. It's whatever you do. But I need to stop thinking that whatever you do affects how I feel, because it cannot unless I let it. And when I began to see him more as an equal, that's when I began to feel real love for him, like I had when he was first born. After that, it was always manipulation to try and make me look good as a parent, or make me feel good and not suffer, not feel bad. But yeah, it's a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves. And the frou-frou land, we all have to taste the frou-frou. We have to kind of ascend, because in a way, it helps us let the mind remember that there are more beautiful, amazing things than are here. But our work is not to go there and get out of here. Our work is to feel it, experience it, and bring it here. Our work is to bring the divinity down into our humanity, not to try and escape it.
Mhm. Thank
Oh,
you
these
for
are
that.
great questions. I have to meet with a client. I've got a 11:30, well, my 11:30 coaching call. So I'm going to have to leave here in a couple of minutes. But Michael, did you have any comments or anything? I hope you guys come back.
I will be back, definitely.
I will too. This was awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Talking about, because the simple thing is that for me, looking in every moment, whenever I felt myself in judgment, I knew I wasn't present. So, moment of my life, if I by going to monkey mind, I would ask myself, well, where's the presence of God in this moment? And it's amazing what would show up in nature, in people, and that left me out of judgment. So, yeah, I'll share that. And I can tell this is affecting me because I'm having trouble talking. So,
Oh, well, we're in the present of just such a high frequency right here, because really, we're two or more gathered to hear truth, to share truth, to be grateful for the truth that is being shared. All that is there is a recognition of the Christ within the other, that just activates more the Christ within us. Because really what's happening is the second coming of Christ, and each and every one of us that wakes up is the second coming. We're ascending to being Christ right here embodied as each and every one of us. Course in Miracles makes it very simple. The Christ is just the awareness that I and the Father, Mother, God are one. So
amen.
Yeah, and everybody can do that if they want to. If that the soul is ready for that, they will. If they're not, then they're playing the game in many ways that are offering, being that grain of sand that is activating our oysters to turn into pearls. So how can we be upset with anybody who is really dense because they're helping us lighten up?
And a quick question on
Miss
organization.
Nancy, good to see you back there.
I've been taking notes, just letting you know. Thank you.
What is it your evening class? I saw the post today where the gentleman said that he couldn't make it at noon, but he'd see you tonight. Do you do it in the day and in the evening also?
It's not the same thing. So I've had students that I've had for, gosh, some 10 years coaching and working through on doing the ego, because it can take a little while for some of us old fogies, not for Ian. Much faster when you're that younger, less dense consciousness. So for some of my more advanced students, I started something called the Happy Dream Creators, because A Course in Miracles is wanting us to make a happy dream out of this reality. So I called it Happy Dream Creators because they were really understood the Course in Miracles better than most, and in themselves were very, very honest with what was going on. But I didn't want to do A Course in Miracles with them because we already do it another way. So we started a book club, and we read one of the channeled books by Cryon called The Journey Home. And now we're doing the book, The Untethered Soul. So we're just looking at that book. We just started last week, did chapters 1 and 2 last week. And tonight we're going to do 3 and 4. So you're welcome to join us for that. I can send you a link. I mean, there's no fee for that. I do as many things where there's no fee because I want as many people to join that want to join and money not be an issue. But if you want, I can send you a link to that.
I think I'm
Yeah,
right.
please send the link.
Well, Ian, if you'll do me a favor, if you can please, I don't want to say my phone number here, so I'm going to type it in the chat.
Okay.
Because this is recorded and anybody can see it, and I don't want random calls.
Yeah.
But send me a text. There we go. Send me a text, and then I'll send you the link. And then, Michael, I'll send you the link as well.
I think he might have accidentally hopped off, or
he might have. Yeah, I've got his number. I've known him a long time.
Okay.
Ian, so good to connect with you.
Thank you so much. Oh man, I have to say thank you for making these things free of charge, because I've been looking for spiritual help for the longest time, and people would try to charge me up the wazoo, and after a few times I was like, and I wasn't getting the help I needed. And I kept thinking about Jesus, how he would just help to help out of love. And
Yep. Yeah.
I was like, I think the right person I'll find would be very loving and often free of charge. But
yes, I mean it's of course I've got my bills and I charge where I can, but
yeah.
I love sharing what has helped set me free. So I feel that it's way better when we can do this together. And there's plenty to go around. There's no worries. Well, listen, text me when you get a chance, and then I'll text you the link for tonight. And do you have the Untethered Soul?
No, I don't. I can find
Okay.
a way to get it.
Yeah. If you can get that book, and I'm sure it's free, it's available already online. So at least read up chapters 3 and 4 for tonight, and I'll send you info. And all right, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. It was a great conversation for sure.
And what's your last name? Locks, Ian Locks. Okay, I'll be looking for your text. Talk to you later, Ian.
I just sent it, but yeah, talk to you later.
Perfect. Oh, I see it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take it easy.